Last month, I talked briefly about our buddy Ian Danskin, a bread tuber who was in some debt and got dug out by his audience via a crowdfunding campaign. Well, he's got that money now, and there has been an update. Thanks to all the generous donators, he is now finally able to go to Japan. Oh, you didn't hear about this? On Blue Sky, he wrote, "Status update. I am on sabbatical for the summer. I'll be doing a project of some sort with a friend in September. By the time that's done, I will have decided whether I'm still a YouTuber. In the meantime, I may make things, but making video essays is not officially my job. No idea what the September project will be. All we've done is agreed to make something. I don't know if it's an album, or a painting, or a web app, or a home movie of us singing Welcome to the Black Parade at karaoke. Clear your mind of expectations." But wait a second, that doesn't mention going to Japan. You can do karaoke anywhere. That's true, but you see, this thread he posted is just a teaser. If you want the full details on what's going on, you need to pay $1, which I, unfortunately, did. In his paid Patreon exclusive, he provides further details on this September meetup. In September, he writes, "I'm going to visit a friend of mine. They live in Japan, and I've wanted to take an extended trip to see them for ages, but haven't had the money for it. They live very cheaply in Japan, and it's likely I can actually break even on expenses, provided we cook most of our meals together." Hold up. What do you mean, break even? Are you considering the whole trip a business expense, and you're expecting to make about that much back off of whatever it is you're gonna make? Or more realistically, is this just him telling us he expects to spend 100% of his income that month, but not have to dip into the crowdfund nest egg, which is a different thing and doesn't sound as good? He continues, "It's just a matter of having the upfront airfare costs, which, thanks to you, I have. And while I'm seeing my friend, we're gonna make a project. We haven't decided what the project is, just that we want to make something together. And whatever it is, it will end up here for all of you." He says he plans to return sometime the next month. Now, you might be thinking, if the first thing he's planning on doing after being bailed out after paying off all his debt is planning what sounds like a multi-week long vacation in Japan, that's a pretty bad sign. You know, even though he got a lot more than he needed, he got into debt in the first place somehow, and perhaps it's due to behavior like this. But you'd be wrong, because planning this trip isn't the first thing he's doing after paying off his debt, because he hasn't paid off his debt yet. "As long as we're talking about the debt," he wrote, "let me give you an update. The first debts I settled up were the loans from loved ones. They're the simplest to deal with as they don't involve any paperwork. Okay, cool, good, they need to be paid back. The IRS keeps me on hold for 80 to 140 minutes every time I call, and usually all that comes of it is the forms you mailed us still aren't in the system. I can't make a payment until everything is on file, but I've gotten the relevant addresses to send money to and gotten digital copies of all the forms, so I can fax them next time they tell me the snail mail hasn't arrived." Fair enough, but I personally wouldn't be planning any luxuries until that stuff is squared away. In fact, as a fellow self-employed individual, most of that money would become emergency funds to make sure I never got into that situation again. He can, of course, do what he wants with it. I'm just saying, it ain't looking good, and I am excited for the future. Speaking of things not looking good, here's the next part. The credit debt in collections is still up in the air. I think I have located the correct contact info for the collections agency that has it currently, so I have some fun times phone calls to make. Having been rescued, this guy has spent more time planning a Japan vacation than figuring out how he actually pays off his debt. I'll repeat what I said in my first video about this situation. I think you've thrown your money into a vortex. Luckily though, he explains, in the meantime, the money sits in a savings account till he gets it where it needs to go. Do you reckon that's all the money? Or just the exact amount he needs to pay off debts with? Because Ian actually doesn't have a great history of responsibility with money, which we'll get to shortly. First, there's one more thing from his Patreon post I wanted to show you. For anyone concerned, GoFundMe donations are, legally speaking, classified as gifts, not income, so I do not have to pay taxes on the donations. I did a small amount of reading about US tax, and that depends. He was quite careful in the campaign to say, I'm not promising anything, no guarantees, yada yada. And that's very important if you want what you get to not be taxable. To be a gift, it has to not be in return for something. So he may well be correct, but if I were him, I'd be paying someone to make sure. I haven't seen him mention doing that, and I would be very, very fucking careful with this. Thanks for the money, now I can go to Japan and make something for you stuff. I would personally simply not say anything that could in any way be construed as me giving something in return for those contributions. Just in case. I'd also personally be a bit wary of crowdfunding money that I say is going to go to my family and friends, even if it is to repay a debt, just in case I fall foul of some of the technicalities regarding what counts as a gift or not. But his life, his money. He can deal with it how he sees fit. It's just that how he sees fit is, historically, hilariously, catastrophically terrible. Did you know that part of the reason he was in so much debt is that he couldn't be bothered to open his mail? I think most people don't know that, because he only admits it in a video that is unlisted and has less than 300 views. Bonus fun fact, he apparently leaked his IP in this video as well. But that's not what we're here for. The fun is that this video from March was a sort of preparation and dress rehearsal for his May video. Towards the end, he starts to talk about all of his debt, against a backdrop of him making a poverty meal in his goblin hovel.
There's just one thing left to talk about. I don't like telling you this.
He's moving like a street vendor with polio. Anyway, this segment is pure gold from the very first line. Prepare yourself.
It is impossible to discuss financial struggles to the people who pay for my career without running the risk of exploitation.
Go watch the first video about this I made, knowing that he had that on his mind for over a month at least. It's way better with this knowledge, and I wish I'd been able to include it.
I don't want to be that guy who says, everybody chip in to save the channel multiple years in a row, and you all just take me at my word that the channel is indeed struggling. We all know how people lie about money and foster parasocial relationships just to enrich themselves. It's a pitfall of this industry, and they poison the well for everybody.
Luckily, though, we have Ian's rock-solid receipts. We can see that he, in fact, only owns 2 pieces of bread.
But I am struggling, and the struggle is real.
And his 2 pieces of bread have holes in them, and they're not bagels.
And I'm going to need to ask for help. So, here are some numbers. A basic fact for the self-employed in the US is that you have to pay about 30% of your income in taxes.
I am not a US tax god, but I guess gonna be self-employment tax, federal income tax, whatever else. About 30%, maybe.
At my level, this can be between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. Now, if I had an employer, it would be less.
I presume he's referring to half of FICA being paid by the employer.
I would need to earn 3 times as much as I do before I would be paying 30%. So, welcome to freelancing.
Cool numbers, Ian. How much less would you have to pay if the money you made last year was through employment? The actual cash amount. Does that sound a little bit less catastrophic than the way you're explaining things now?
I have only been able to pay the entirety of my taxes 1 time in the past 7 years.
Wait, why are you saying it like that? Which year in the last 7 were you able to do it? And why did these troubles start 7 years ago? Did you notice that in the May video as well? He said since about 7 years ago, he's been running the channel at a loss.
Taking a full account, I have been running this channel at a loss for 7 years.
Which is interesting because about 7.5-ish years ago, he uploaded a video called The Future of Innuendo Studios. In it, he explained he needed to decide whether he should get a job and focus less on the channel, or go all in if people provided him enough support. And one of the reasons was...
And with my rent going up and my student loans going into repayment, that loop isn't cutting it anymore.
He was very worried about those student loans earlier that year as well, saying it's going to take him a decade to pay it off, and he got off easy. 2 years after that, he was talking about paying off credit and personal debts alongside student loans. In 2022, he talked about getting a refund for contributions made during the 2020 payment pause, and hoped that Biden would make it disappear for him. You get this all sorted out, buddy? Spoiler, he did not, and he will mention it later in this unlisted video. It is not, however, unless I've somehow missed it, but I've double-checked. Student loans aren't mentioned in his May video that was public, nor are they mentioned on the GoFundMe, despite the repayment starting pretty much exactly when he said the start of his woes was, and his loans obviously being a major factor. Weird. Why wouldn't he mention that you're paying off his student loans? Or how much of his debt they represented? Once he smashed his goal, why wouldn't he be ecstatic? Guys, you've even helped me pay off my student loans. Anyway, back to the video from March of this year. We're going to skip some yapping and get to his explanation of something that went wrong.
Patreon sends me my money through PayPal, and from PayPal I send it to my bank. but apparently both Patreon and PayPal report that as income to the government.
Yeah, and they make it very clear that they do that.
And so a few years back, I got an audit where they said, you earned twice as much in 2019 as you claimed, which means you owe us twice as much in taxes. I disputed this by their deadline, and I thought it was taken care of, but apparently not.
Whoa. Hold up. This happened in 2019. They were asking you for double tax, and you just put in a dispute, didn't follow up, didn't get confirmation. Oh, I'm sure it's fine. That shit would be eating me alive until I had absolute confirmation it was fixed. This blows my mind.
Now, I have a few options for dealing with this. My preference is to run some kind of fundraiser in the near future.
Yeah, my preference would be that people just give me the money as well, but... well, there is no but. That's what he did, and it worked.
But there is also really aggressive payment plan and call a bankruptcy lawyer. And when you get to the point where you might credibly say being a YouTuber bankrupted me, you have to stop and think a moment.
That's a point I'd say he never reached. Being a YouTuber is not what bankrupted him. Just FYI, I'm going to skip some yapping.
I want to acknowledge that some of this is my fault.
The first time I heard this, I lost it, and it is almost as funny the second time.
The debt would not be nearly so big if I were better at budgeting.
So he admits to excessive spending.
If I read my mail faster.
This is what I mentioned earlier. I was not exaggerating. Part of the reason he was nearly 100k, if we believe him, in debt is because he didn't open, I don't know, bills, letters from his bank.
If I had followed up about that audit, I am not purely a victim here.
Not purely, just 99%. Nothing I could have done.
But also, this is a bad and broken system, and
yeah, you can't expect people to just open their mail. That's crazy.
Even if I played it perfectly, there is no universe where I make what I make and finish the year with 12 grand left over for the government.
Money comes in. You put aside the part that's for taxes, roughly. You base your lifestyle on the other chunk. Then, this doesn't happen.
Not in this city.
I see, we've gone from this universe to, that city, and he has to live there, right?
Maybe not in this country.
Come on. You work online. You can live anywhere with electricity and an internet connection. Everyone making what you make, just homeless in the USA. Shut up.
Like right now, after fees, my Patreon take-home is about $3,500.
Nice. And that's just Patreon.
My rent, utilities, groceries, and non-employer health insurance come out to $2,300, at least in the winter when the gas bill is high. You throw in student loan payments, monthly expenses like Adobe and Delete Me, meds, bus passes. We're already over 70%.
Student loan repayment ain't gigantic, but it is still there.
Depending on releases, AdSense and Nebula can bring in sometimes thousands of extra dollars, which I will then owe taxes on.
Right. And what do you do with that money? I'm really curious. As a self-employed person, you gotta understand your income's gonna fluctuate up and down. Some people foolishly have a good month and start spending more. Are you one of those, Ian?
But some months they bring in a few hundred. Like, December's Nebula payout was $14.65.
Sure, but if you get several thousand extra one month, that doesn't evaporate when you turn the page on your calendar. Remember, he's already admitted to having bad budgeting. Remember, he got given 100+ grand to dig him out of a terrible hole, and the first thing he did was announce his multi-week Japan vacation. Gee golly gosh, how could Ian have gotten into debt? It must have been the system.
I talked to a financial planner about this situation a few years ago, and the best we could come up with was, on a very tight budget, I could maybe halve the rate at which I am going into debt to the government.
Bullshit. Perhaps with what you told them you were willing to do, that's what they told you.
And that was when the Patreon was several $100s a month higher. I do not see a path to being free and clear, much less building any savings or putting away for retirement. And y'all, I'm in my 40s. I can't play the starving artist much longer.
We can see you, bro. Don't be saying starving artist when what you're playing is pregnant gamer.
My family and I are moving in a few months, and fortunately the city we're moving to has a lower cost of living.
Damn, nice. Did you know you can just choose to do that anytime? Ian Danskin isn't playing a gacha game that tells him whether he can move or not and whether or not it's going to be more expensive. You can just do it, as he's doing now in fact, but made it sound like he couldn't before. Some people have to, sometimes to avoid the situation you've put yourself into. We're going to skip a little bit of yapping.
Like, I'm not here to put a dent in my debt. I have to get this zeroed out.
Including those student loans that you accrued getting a degree that you don't think and probably won't ever help you get a job. Sounds a bit more your fault if you include that though, right? In your public video.
And I've got to get my income to a level where I don't just start building it back up again, because if that's what we're looking at, it's not worth it.
Plan. Wipe debt. Get more money in. No mention of decreasing expenditure.
Like, at that point, I will get a day job and make videos where I can. I don't want that, but I want to be broke all the time, even less.
We've seen your CV. You're not going to make more money with a day job. This is some weird pretend stuff.
I know that sounds kind of dire, and I promise I'm not just saying this to mobilize you.
Does it sound dire? Maybe to your viewership, I'm sure they're all on r/anti-work. It sucks compared to being able to dick around on the internet for money, but most of the people watching you probably live that life. Have some fucking self-awareness, please.
The fact is, the reason the debt got so high is that for these past 7 years, it has been worth it. And if I can't raise enough to pay this off, and if I file for bankruptcy and I can't be a full-time YouTuber anymore, I'm not going to say I have no regrets, but I'm also not going to say it wasn't worth it. I will be glad I got away with it for as long as I did.
That clip is gonna be so juicy sweet when he inevitably craters himself again.
So, once again, I am starting off the year saying this might be the end. So let's have a good time.
Again, man, we can see you. You're not eating some moldy onions on bread 3 times a day. This video is an absolute embarrassment. And the only silver lining is that the people who got suckered by all of this and gave this man a big pile of cash probably deserve to get fucked.